You set the alarm for 5 a.m. because you thought discipline was the missing piece. You believed that waking up before the world stirred would somehow fix the hollow feeling that follows you through every productive day. But 3 months later, you are still setting that alarm, still hitting snooze, still lying there in the dark wondering why the person who can force themselves to do everything else can't force themselves to do this one thing. Here is what nobody tells you. The 5 a.m. routine didn't fail because you lacked discipline. It failed because discipline was never the problem. And the longer you keep blaming your willpower, the longer you avoid looking at what's actually breaking underneath. The first week felt like transformation. You bought the journal. You prepared the coffee the night before. You laid out your workout clothes like they were a uniform for the person you were about to become. And for those first few days, you did it. You woke up, you sat in the quiet darkness of your kitchen and felt something you hadn't felt in years, momentum. The kind that makes you believe you finally cracked the code everyone else seems to know. But momentum is a drug. And like all drugs, it stops working the moment your body realizes it's not solving the actual problem. By week 2, the alarm felt heavier, not because you were more tired, but because the silence of 5 a.m. started to feel less like opportunity and more like confrontation. When there is no meeting to prepare for, no email to answer, no task to justify your existence, you are just sitting there with the version of yourself you've been outrunning. And that version has questions you don't want to answer. You told yourself it was about productivity, about getting ahead, about becoming the kind of person who doesn't waste time. But productivity is just a sophisticated form of avoidance when you are using it to drown out the noise in your own head. Every morning you woke up early, you were really just trying to prove something, not to the world, to yourself, that you are not lazy, that you are not broken, that if you just optimize hard enough, the feeling will go away. By month 2, the routine became a battlefield. Some mornings you won, most mornings you didn't. And every time you hit snooze, it wasn't just a failure of discipline, it was evidence. Evidence that you are exactly the person you feared you were. The one who starts things and doesn't finish them. The one who talks about change but never actually changes. The one who sets goals not because they want to achieve them, but because having goals feels better than admitting they don't know what they actually want. You started to notice something else, too. On the mornings you did wake up, you didn't feel better. You felt hollow, like you were performing a ritual for a god you didn't believe in anymore. The productivity felt mechanical, the quiet felt accusatory, and the journaling just became a diary of someone pretending to have insights they didn't feel. This is where most people double down. They add another habit, another tracking system, another podcast about discipline. Because if the routine isn't working, it must be because you are not doing it hard enough, not optimizing correctly, not committed enough. But here is the truth that sits in your stomach like a stone. You can't discipline your way out of a problem you haven't named. And the problem was never that you couldn't wake up at 5 a.m. The problem is that you've spent so long performing productivity that you've forgotten what it feels like to actually want something. Month 3 was when it broke. Not dramatically. Not with some explosive realization. It broke quietly on a Tuesday when you woke up at 7:30 a.m. without an alarm and felt nothing. Not guilt, not failure, just the dull recognition that you'd been fighting the wrong battle the entire time. You weren't failing at discipline. You were failing at honesty. Every morning you set that alarm, you were asking your body to show up for a life you weren't sure you wanted. You were trying to optimize a routine before you even questioned the destination, and your body knew. It always knows. That's why you couldn't get out of bed, not because you were weak, but because some part of you understood that waking up at 5 a.m. to do things you don't care about is just a more socially acceptable form of self-abandonment. The 5 a.m. routine works for people who know what they're waking up for, people who have something pulling them out of bed that's stronger than the comfort of staying under the covers. But you were trying to use the routine to create the pull, trying to manufacture purpose through discipline, and it doesn't work that way. It never has. You can force yourself to do anything for a while. But eventually, your body calls the bluff. Eventually, the alarm goes off and you lie there in the dark, and the only honest question left is, what am I actually doing this for? The shift didn't come from a new strategy. It came from stopping. From letting the routine fall apart completely and sitting in the discomfort of not having a system to hide behind. From asking the question you'd been avoiding since the beginning, what do you actually want your days to feel like? Not what should you want, not what successful people want, what you want. And that question is terrifying because answering it means admitting that maybe the life you've been optimizing isn't the life you want to be living. Maybe the productivity is just a performance. Maybe the discipline is just a way to avoid the deeper work of figuring out what you are actually here to do. When you finally stopped trying to wake up at 5 a.m. and started asking what you wanted to wake up for, something shifted. Not into another routine, into clarity. And clarity doesn't need discipline the same way. Clarity pulls you out of bed because there is something on the other side that matters more than comfort. Some mornings, that meant waking up early. Some mornings, it didn't. But the difference was that you stopped measuring your worth by the time on the clock and started measuring it by whether you were moving towards something real or just performing movement. The 5 a.m. routine didn't fail you. It revealed you. It showed you that discipline without direction is just exhaustion in disguise. And now you are standing in the quiet of your own life, no longer hiding behind productivity, finally asking the questions that matter. The alarm still goes off sometimes, but now when you decide to stay in bed, it's not failure. It's honesty. And honesty, it turns out, is harder than discipline ever was.